Hello, Playman here. So, what I want to do next is a movie review for V for Vendetta. If you haven't seen it, you're missing out, and I'm going to explain to you why you're missing out. I'm not going to do spoilers, maybe a little bit of spoilers, but frankly, the movie is like 19 years old, so excuse me. I've seen it almost every year since it came out. I don't think I saw it in theaters because it wasn't that good. That cool, that awesome, whatever. Apparently not a lot of other people did. So, the nuts and bolts of it are, this movie is called V, like the letter V. V? That's, yeah, peace backwards? I don't know. V for Vendetta. If you don't know what Vendetta is, look it up. You're in for a world of information. A whole new world. I say that, I'm not trying to be mean, like, look it up. You should have a dictionary. You should know words. But it's a cool word. Anyhow. And I realize that some people might not know what it is. Okay, so it came out in 2005. I'm looking online because I'm realizing that I would like to share some other information. It was directed by a guy named James McTeague. And it was written and produced by the Wachowskis. Now, those of you who don't know who the Wachowskis are, they wrote, produced, directed the Matrix trilogy. There's a lot of, if it's the, as good as, they stole the concept, whatever. And then on top of that, with the success of the Matrix, which was super duper successful, and frankly, the first Matrix especially is one of my favorite movies of all time. With the success of that, they were kind of given carte blanche to do whatever they wanted. Later, I'll talk about a movie called Cloud Atlas that I totally love, that they also did, that wasn't very successful. Anyways, but they wrote this and produced this. It was directed by a guy named James McTeague, who has done some other things, but primarily, like, he directed some episodes from Marco Polo and Sense8, and he directed Ninja Assassin. I love that movie. And he directed it right after this, 4 years later. Ooh. Okay, anyways, Ninja Assassin is a separate movie. Very fun, well worth watching. But effectively, he was like a director of photography for the Wachowskis, for The Matrix, and he did this. And if you watch this, it definitely gives you vibes, a certain aesthetic to The Matrix. Obviously not the green glow, but it's similar but not the same at all. Other interesting little tidbits is a certain amount of the filming, I want to say a third of it, was filmed with a different actor than Hugo Weaving. Hugo Weaving playing Mr. Smith, the guy who said, Mr. Anderson in The Matrix. Hugo Weaving's amazing. He also plays, I think, Elrond in the Lord of the Rings series. He's a terrific actor, just wonderful. And he does the voice and I think a lot of the physicality of this movie. I haven't really delved into how much of the stunts. I mean, he's an older man, so I'm sure he didn't do all of the stunts, but a lot. But one thing that's notable is that his character is all constantly in a mask. Like the entire film, he's in a mask. You never see his face. And the original guy that they had, who I actually like, if you ever saw the movie Knight's Tale, which is a silly movie, but the guy who was a king or a prince and whatever, who did the good thing at the end of that movie, that was the original guy. And frankly, I love that actor. I thought that was a great choice. But I guess a third of the way, we'll call it a third of the way through the production, he wasn't a fan of like the fact that his face was never going to be shown. And I want to be like, well, did you not read the comics? But whatever. So he bounced, or it didn't work, or whatever. And then brought in Hugo Weaving. And apparently there's still some of the scenes where the original actor was in it, but then they dubbed in Hugo Weaving. And lastly, I'm going to chill out with a couple more things on the fan stuff. One is all the sounds as if they got it through the mask. It would be so easy to cheat and have dialogue later, right? Like just have them do the action or whatever, and then capture the dialogue in ADR, right? Capture it later in studio. But then you wouldn't really get the mask and the heavy breathing and stuff like that. And maybe they did that anyways, But I applaud that all of his hand gestures and all of his movements coincide beautifully with his vocals, like with what he's saying. So it feels as if he's really there. Even if it was done afterwards, later, to get better, clearer sound, the seamlessly done. They did a perfect job to me. I loved it. I love this movie so much that when I was doing acting class, which I hope to go back to soon, I did like 3 scenes from this movie in my acting class. Like brought stuff, had the whole outfit, yada, yada, yada. I was really into this movie. I loved it. And it was so much fun to do. Remember the 5th of November, the gunpowder treason and plot. I know of no reason why the gunpowder treason should ever be forgot. Anyhow, and it's hilarious. I watched it again with my wife, and the first, third of the movie, I was almost verbatim saying all the lines, and she loves that. Even though she doesn't love it, she loves me, so it's wonderful. Lastly, this movie was not terribly successful. I wouldn't consider it a fail. I think they probably made their money back with the DVDs, but the budget was $54 million, which in 2005 was a lot of money. In today's money, that's like nothing. And if you watch it, you're like, wow, they only spent $54 million. And then the other thing, so opening weekend it did 25 mil. Gross worldwide, it made 134 mil. So in Hollywood numbers, it effectively made its money back. Like, just split it in half, let's say, gross worldwide, they made $70 million. But when you count advertising, well, I guess based on that, when you count advertising, they didn't make money. They lost money on the film. I'm sure over time, they made their money back. It's not that big. But it's one of those films that, and here, now we're going to talk about the film. Effectively, you're in Britain. It's some unspecified time in the future. Britain is very closed off. It's in this very dictatorial government, very restrictive. There is times that you're not allowed to go out in the evening, like after 9 or 10, you can't go out and about. There's only one news source, and it's basically the BBC, but it's called something else. But just one news source, and there's no real voting. It's just, this is the leader, and that's it, and this is what you got to do. And effectively, you have this terrorist named V with the Guy Fawkes mask, which is a harken back to, and I wish I'd done my research on this, I'm sorry. It's a harken back to an attempt of a guy named Guy Fawkes who tried to blow up Parliament and failed. He was captured and then he was hung. And they do talk about that a little bit in the movie, so I'm not like, whatever. Anyhow, so effectively there's a mask that kind of represents that level of screw the authority, muck you, meh, whatever. And that theory, that concept it permeates throughout the entire movie. This semblance of, hey, do you notice how bad things are? Have you kind of forgotten? And there's this beautiful monologue that the main character V does that I'm not going to say. But it's so amazing and it's so well edited because it shows these people all throughout Britain who are listening to him. And you can see a little bit, like a 1% of them starting to be like, oh my gosh, what is this world that I've allowed to happen? Because it's death by 1,000 cuts. Chinese water torture, 1,000 drips. It isn't the first one or the 10th or the 100th thing that negatively impacts you. It is all these little things and then combined. Or one analogy I like using, and I feel like is very relevant to this movie, is effectively what happened to this culture, and what I would say is happening to our culture now, is that we are a frog. If you put a frog in a pot of water that's cold, right? And then you slowly turn the heat up. What will eventually happen is the water will boil naturally because hot and the water boils, and the frog won't leap out. It'll just be boiled alive. It's very disgusting. I'm so sorry, but this is just what happens. However, if you boil water and you throw a frog in it, all of a sudden they're like, ah! And think of it this way. You as an American, you're free. You have the ability to freedom of speech. You can say your mind online. You can do whatever you want to do. You can buy houses. You can start a business. yada, yada, yada. You have all these freedoms and abilities. If you go to another part of the world where they don't have those same set freedoms, you're going to find, oh, I don't like this, and you're going to jet. But you don't realize that when you vote or you don't vote, sorry to bring it back to that, but not sorry, then what you're effectively doing is you're just putting another brick on the wall that's blocking you into the world that if you were to go there now, you wouldn't like it. So effectively, what this movie articulates is if you allow bad things to happen, if you don't take umbrage, if you don't step up and say no on the little steps along the way, and it illustrates historically different steps that happen in their universe, in their world, then you're doomed to repeat, you're doomed to suffer effectively the tyranny that you've allowed to transpire. And I feel like that's where we are. And if I'm being too on the nose, I feel like we as a people have been allowing bad things to happen, bad people to take control, so on and so forth. And I feel like with Trump winning was a perhaps a final breath of freedom, a stopgap. And if we as individuals don't take this brief moment of freedom and realize, hey, we need to help these people. Not necessarily with money, but we also need to take responsibility and control over our own lives, over the people who run our government, whether it's the teachers union, or the local school, or the local this, or anything that affects you. You need to have knowledge, responsibility, and control over it because it affects you. It totally affects you. And effectively, this movie I try and watch every year on November 5th. Remember the 5th of November, because it is so poignant of a story to get reinvigorated in my soul and reminded that it is my responsibility to make and have the world be a better place. So that's where I want to leave it with you all. Plaid Man out. Feel free to comment. It is one of my favorite movies. If I didn't say it, I'm sorry. Hugo Weaving's the lead. Natalie Portman is in there. She does a great job. She actually did get her head shaved for that. There's a moment in there. It's in the trailer, so not whatever. It's so good. It's so good as far as a standalone movie, and it's also super enjoyable. It's something your wife can watch with you, whatever. Just enjoy it. Like, if you haven't seen it, enjoy it. I will say it's rated R, so if you have a kid, it's probably not appropriate for them because it gets pretty gnarly. It talks about some pretty gnarly subjects. But I would say it's kind of in the vein of The Matrix. Like, yeah, there's violence and other stuff, but it's not horrible. Anyways, that's it for now. Love you all. Plaid Man out. Talk to you soon. Bye.